Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Quantum Experience. This is the second edition in our retelling of these stories. Today, I'm joined by Tobias Denzler. Tobias is the head of science and technology at QAI Ventures. Tobias, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So the reason I wanted to set up this series, Tobias, was to hopefully appeal to some of our future leaders or entrepreneurs that are thinking about the industry. So I wanted to talk to some interesting people who come from different backgrounds. So obviously today you're coming from the investment point of view, which is probably going to be interesting to some people. So yeah, maybe if we could start with an introduction. So maybe tell us a bit about your background.
Sure. Thank you very much, Matthew. So yeah, my name is Tobias Denzler in German, and I'm the head of science and technology at QAI Ventures. My background is I'm a trained physicist, so I got my PhD in theoretical quantum physics from the University of Stuttgart in Germany quite a few years ago, and then first moved on to Berlin to work in a kind of hybrid role for the German government. So I was working for one of the funding agencies in Germany that oversees the development of or implementation of quantum technology strategies. In that role, I was advising the parliament and the ministry on like how to set up tenders, how to set up calls, also scout the neighboring countries to kind of position Germany where its strengths lie, and also in comparison to like on a global stage. So that was like what I did for like up to 3 years. In that role, I learned well, it was a big shift away from being a pure scientist and being able to being more in a translator role, so translating science for politicians and vice versa. That was a big learning. But it gave me also like this more zoomed out perspective of what happens on quantum technology. And the first step mostly on a European and German level, but already much more high level and wider scope than when you're a scientist. Because when you start in research, you're really like in this tunnel vision in a very deep knowledge hole. And that was a great experience. And from there on, I moved then on to Switzerland. It was roughly 2 years ago to join the QAI Ventures team. And yeah, similar roles, but happy to dive deeper on where I'm there later on in this interview.
Yeah, great. Well, we might as well go straight into it. So tell us about your current work at QAI Ventures.
Sure. So yeah, like I mentioned, I'm the head of science and technology, which in some ways is a bit similar to what I did before. In some ways, it's completely different because at QAI Ventures, we are a VC, an accelerator and ecosystem builder for quantum technologies, and we do that globally. So maybe before I quickly talk about my role, just a quick intro what we do at QAI Ventures.
Yeah.
So our main headquarters is in Basel in Switzerland, but since I joined the team, we've opened up 3 other offices in Calgary, in Canada. Yeah, I'm as surprised. In Tokyo, in Japan, and in Singapore. That was just 2 months ago. And what we are doing is, besides being a VC and doing investments in quantum startups worldwide, is we also accelerate them. So we start with very young teams at universities, and we try to talk to all the stakeholders that exist. So the corporates for potential POCs for the portfolio, do cooperation, to kind of join projects with them, and so on. Me as head of science and technology, I always say I'm wearing 2 hats. So the first and obvious one is the technology and science head. That means I'm in charge of supervising and setting up our due diligence for our investment portfolio. So I do a first due diligence on myself, and then of course, when we go on a deeper stage, I organize the right experts to implement the due diligence. I also help our startups on a technical perspective. So when you, for example, have a software startup, a quantum software startup, I look within our network is there's a quantum hardware provider, which is a good match that could help them to kind of work on the implementations of their solutions. And I also work a lot with, on the other side, with our deal flow. So I'm kind of attending different conferences, visit universities and scout as well with other team members, okay, to ensure that we have a high quality deal flow globally in our respective offices. This is the one side of it. On the other side, I am in charge of our university partnerships. That means because high quality deal flow in a field like quantum technology obviously comes from where quantum technology is made, and this is still largely inside the universities. So we have different kind of partnerships that we do with universities or projects, and I'm in charge of implementing those. That could be setting up hackathons. We just finished a massive hackathon series globally in Geneva together with CERN, in Calgary with our the University of Calgary there and in Singapore. This is kind of to kind of explore different, like very early stage solutions in quantum software and quantum use cases for quantum computing, and also to see, okay, what's kind of the feedback, like gather ideas how it can be solved together with like very passionate students, usually masters or PhDs and beyond. And on the other hand, we also do entrepreneurial activities with the universities, which directly feeds in our deal flow. So we do like entrepreneurial workshops where we like 1 to 3 days go to one of these locations, or these students come to us. They come with their own idea, but they of course have no clue what to do with that. And then we do like a entrepreneurship 101 with them, but from a quantum lens, and teach them how that can be implemented, what are the basics when you want to start your own company, your own startup. And then follow up with them with online boot camps to ideally funnel a few of these talents, if they choose so, and we're always happy when they do, into our larger deal flow for our direct investments or our accelerator programs, which then go ahead with actual equity.
Great. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in your introduction that from your PhD you went to work for the government. So was that move out of the lab quite intentional, or a lot of people who finish their PhD maybe don't want to continue in the lab. So was that intentional for you?
I would say, if I'm honest, it was 50-50. So
yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah.
I think for many scientists, me included, it's a very tough choice to leave academia, because it's the only thing you've known, and also it's so ingrained in your PhD education that this is the way to go.
Yeah.
And for me, of course, the question was there, postdoc, yes, no. I had my postdoc lined up, and then was really wondering, okay, should I pursue this? And the other option originally arose as an intermediate bridge, because to be fair, I applied a bit too late for my postdoc funding, and then I had a few months to spare, and it was like, why not try this out, just to see a slightly other perspectives. And it was very eye-opening, and I enjoyed it so much that then I decided to, okay, it was a tough decision, but nonetheless, I decided, okay, I prefer being close to the technology still to some extent, always more in a passive way, in the sense of knowing the people, understanding it, but no longer being the person who implements it myself. Because I noticed that I really enjoy, and I alluded a little bit to that before, seeing these connections on a wider scale. So something that you apply in one context, how it can be applied in another one, and go a little bit away from this silo thinking that's very, very present within academia.
Yeah, that was a better answer than I was expecting. So yeah, thank you for that. So I want to move on to investing. So can you remember the first investment that you were involved in, and how did it happen, and where are they now?
With pleasure. So I was involved in our second round of investments. So when I joined, we already had invested in 5 startups. So maybe quickly to explain, our main investment tool are not the direct investments as of now, but it's within an accelerator program. So startups or very early teams, they join us for 5 months, of which they spend 4 weeks on site, which are equally spaced for these 5 months. And the idea behind this is then really do a deep dive, have milestones with them to get them up to the investment stage. So we already we do give them a convertible loan when they join this program of 200,000 Swiss francs. And these teams are there's a huge variety in their readiness, but generally very in the pre-seed and seed stage. So many of them have never raised a round. And so having said that, there are 2 great examples that were directly in my first batch and make me very happy. And one of them was Zurich Q, like many quantum companies that's spelled with a Q.
Yeah. It's Pavel, right?
And as the name suggests, they're originally from Zurich, from ETH.
Yeah.
And they are the first Swiss quantum computing company. So really a Swiss, based in Switzerland company that wants to build a quantum computer based on trapped ions.
Yeah.
And we were excited about them from the start. Pure scientist team picked up all the right, also the business side super quickly, and managed to raise, I think it was 4.2 million Swiss francs within the first year.
Wow.
And within Europe, this is a lot. Usually raising money in Europe, in particular in deep tech in Switzerland, is challenging, and they managed to do it nonetheless. So that was a big success that I'm really happy about. Another one, and it's a rather recent is QPerfect. They were also in this first batch that was 2 years ago. And they are from Strasbourg in France. And they do focus on emulation of quantum computers. So a lot focused on the cold atom side, but also in general. And they were partially acquired by BTQ, which is a publicly listed quantum company in the Nasdaq. And they have also acquired the right to potentially acquire them completely until the end of next year. So our first exit, so to speak. And both of them were from the batch that I joined. So yeah, very happy as of now. Those two really stuck with me, but there are of course many others.
Yeah, sure. That's great. I know both of those companies, and yeah, I think both have extremely good reputations as well, which is obviously important. So yeah, excellent work. Okay, this is obviously coming from the point of view of an investor. So what common mistakes do you think founders make in the early days?
Oh, that's a big question. It's very diverse. I mean, it depends a lot on the team, but you're right. There are some commonalities we see. I mean, for now, I would say I restrict this to Europe because a lot of them are more European typical than like North America. Because most founder teams are just scientists, particularly when they're fresh out of university. So they understand their tech perfectly. That's a big advantage, but it's also a challenge when it comes to getting investment and attracting customers. So the way I always try to explain to them myself is the way they're kind of thinking and explaining things is more or less upside down to how it works in the corporate world and the investor world. So they come really from this tech first perspective and problem later. So they're really looking for a problem for their tech. And that's also how they explain the story, because they're so excited about quantum technology, which I can totally understand, that they spend a lot of time on highlighting this, but they don't really focus on what does it solve, because in the end, the customer doesn't care, as harsh as it sounds, that it's a nice piece of technology. They care about what can it do.
Yeah.
Even in quantum, what can it do potentially in the future, if you talk about quantum computing, for example. And when you have their pitch deck, they spend a lot of time on these things, and they don't spend so much time on the things that investors care about, which is, okay, how does your cap table look like? So who owns which shares? What's about the IP protection? What's the potential market size? So usually they do a very hand-wavy assessment of their totally addressable market, but like they don't really think through, okay, how do they break into this market? Or they didn't talk a lot with potential people from the market. If I might pick an example, like if from quantum companies want to kind of step into the pharma world, which is very strongly present in Basel, which is why I bring it up. It's its own way of doing things and the cycles and the regulations. And if somebody has never, in breaking into this is very challenging. And of course, we don't expect a team fresh from university to know everything about pharma regulation. It's a job in itself. But a little bit more conversations beforehand with people from that field, you notice when people do it and when they don't. Because this assessments, it's really understanding the potential customer is something they're lacking naturally. So this is one mistake. The last one I would say is it's a bit how they pitch. So the pitches in general, they have not, in university, the style of presenting things versus the style of presenting to different audiences, like the customer, the investor, is fundamentally different. And is very short and being concise, because attention span is much limited or very limited.
Yeah.
It's something we haven't learned yet. That goes from the famous elevator pitch all the way to the actual pitch deck. And this is something you can realize very early. There are some people that naturally pivot to it, and they're really good, but those are the exception.
Yeah.
However, I want to mention what always surprises me on the positive side, having mentioned all these common mistakes, how quickly most of these scientists are capable of learning this. So I'm always surprised, even within these short workshops we do for just for a few days. So scientists have this natural curiosity, and it's kind of a new thing to explore and learn. And a lot of them pick it up incredibly quickly and become super good at it, really in a very short time frame. And that's always great to see, and still surprises me every day.
Yeah, that's great. Just to move on, so you mentioned the elevator pitch there, and these things have been glamorized for years in Hollywood, etc. But do you think there's when it comes from an investor point of view,
Mhm.
talk me through the balance of investing in the person or the team versus the idea?
I would say it's pretty much 50-50 because if the team is not good, then the best idea in the world cannot be implemented. So we really watch both. When it comes to team, one very important thing we look into is, on the one hand, we don't really like single founder teams. And I think most investors do not, because doing everything alone is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And having a team of at least two changes things fundamentally. And when you look up some statistics in founder success, it's most of the time there's this optimal ratio, like I think it's 2 to 5 founders, which increases the chances of success. Within the team, it's really important, we think, that they have clear roles. I mean, in the beginning, it's a bit more blurry, and
Yeah.
because people have to do cover a lot of different topics with few people. But then it becomes, from the start, it's very good to see when, like, the team knows, okay, this is more like the CTO, because the person really tries to stay close to the tech. This is more like the CEO. And then they're also aware of being, okay, when you're the CEO, you will not spend much time in the lab anymore. You will be the person talking to the customers, to the investors, and to understand if they actually like that. Because sometimes people are like, yeah, I want to be the CEO. Then they realize what that means. And they're like, actually, I don't enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like, and so, like, this is something we try to gauge a bit when asking them questions, if they're clear about this. And on the other side, of course, the technology. Technology is fundamental. It's very important. And usually, when it comes to the technology, okay, the first question we have to ask is, does it fit our investment thesis? So is it quantum? We all know when it comes to the borders of quantum, it gets a bit blurry, because, I mean, some pieces of quantum technology are already coming commodities, like lasers today. But what we care about is, okay, as an investor, how is your idea protected? So is it a trade secret? Do you have an IP, or at least applied for one? Because this is very crucial, because the investor, in the end, the IP is what the investor has if everything else fails. And if there's no IP behind it, or no protection of any kind, then it's usually investors will usually not be interested. The other point about the technology is, does it have something that is makes it unique and makes it stand out? That was also, for example, the case in Zurich Q. You might wonder, okay, another quantum computing company that late in the game, based on trapped ions, even though we have, like, the big players in the US and in the UK.
Yeah.
But they had, like, a completely unique approach how they went about it, and that was crucial to us. So do the things in a fundamentally new way? Is this protected? And do they also understand where this is placed with respect to the potential competition? So did they actually scout the market on the quantum side thoroughly enough? And if this combined with the team works together, then we have the optimal match.
Great. Thank you very much. So you touched upon, the team. So what traits would you say you look for in a founding team? And are there any particular questions that you ask to get closer to that information?
So it's a good question. So it's not a particular set of questions. It arises a bit naturally in the conversation, but I mean, there are a few for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, usually what we're looking for is, in general, that the team is very much aware of the weaknesses, and is also very open about what they develop. So it's usually one of our final questions. Okay, now you presented how awesome your technology is. What are its limitations? Where are the bottlenecks? Because in A, we want the person to be honest, to kind of showcase those, and B,
Yeah.
is the person capable of showing them? Sometimes people didn't think this through, and this is something that, when it comes to the founders, this is very crucial for us, because that means that checks for us how much they kind of are aware of their surroundings, which, when they start a startup, is crucial. So they understand what's out there. Sometimes people propose solutions that already exist, and they just don't know. When it comes to the team dynamics, that's something we're also observing during during interviews, right? We see how the team is working. Is it a one-man show with 3 bystanders, or do they actually work as a team?
Yeah.
And this is something that you notice, and it's very hard to describe because there's no specific set of questions, but you see, like, especially when the team is present in person, how they work with each other, how they interact. And this is something we're of course watching out for, to kind of check the green flags for the aforementioned team dynamics. When it comes to the traits we're looking for, particularly in the CEO, how we're looking into the person and like, okay, mate, how much is the CEO capable of being this translator and adapting his style to the different audiences? So usually I have the interview on the technical side, and then my team members, sometimes they're combined, but usually we have a technical side of the interview, and we have like a more business-oriented one. And even the business-oriented one, my team members that are not all technical, they need to understand, at least on a surface level, what this company is doing. And if they can't do that after the conversation with the CEO, that's usually a bad sign, because it means the CEO was not capable of highlighting this. So this is something we're looking for. And then, of course, it's commitment. So once we invest in the company, we want to see commitment of the team and commitment of the founders. So they really are full-time working on this project. And it's not like, okay, I do my postdoc and dabble a little bit on my startup on the side, or I'm a professor and I'm one of the founders. Professors, founders that stay within the university are usually a prime example of not committed people. So we try to really check for this, and because that shows also like that they're willing to take risks, which is crucial in the startup world, and also some kind of the commitment. So we want to see the risk taking, we want to see the commitment, and we want to see that they work very strongly as a team, to summarize it maybe.
Cool. So just to move on to our final question. So in terms of leadership, who's the most memorable or impactful leader you worked under, and why? Maybe there's more than one.
It's a good question. I was fortunate enough to have very good leaders throughout my career. In my old job in Germany, the lead of our implementation group was fantastic. But I think currently I would just bring up our CEO in QAI Ventures, Alexandra Beckstein. She is originally also a geoscientist, but is now working in our field. And what I have to say, what I really respect and what leaves a huge impact on me is how the leader is dealing with the team, and finding this balance between being the leader but being capable of listening to suggestions and critique. And for me, she hits this perfect sweet spot. So she is very visionary. In this, I mean, she started QAI Ventures, a quantum computing, a quantum accelerator, when there were many in this world. That's already visionary in itself. And then, but what she does, and what I respect deeply, is she puts a lot of emphasis on our team. So people that are new people being hired, but also the existing team, that everybody in the team has a way of expressing their doubts or like their thoughts, but also everybody has a huge amount of responsibility. So and she entrusts us with this responsibility, and that leads to all these great outcomes we've achieved so far. So, and this is the type of leadership which I think is ideal. I wouldn't know any better approach of doing it. What I also I already mentioned it, but what for me is fantastic in her leadership is this. This willing. I mean, she has vast knowledge which she acquired over the years, but it's this willingness to be always challenged. So some leaders are really, they react very harshly when somebody criticizes their style, but she takes it in because it's useful information to get this, and she's aware of that, and then might or might not, of course, the discussion starts, but take that into account for the further strategy. And especially for me as the technical lead in the team, it's very valuable to be appreciated in this. So I mean, I bring in always a very unique perspective compared to the investor team, because they're really business oriented. And then comes me, and I'm like, oh yeah, but this piece of technology actually doesn't work, and then being trusted enough to be able to express these doubts, that's really valuable, and that makes our team so strong. And ultimately, that's all thanks to her. But like I said in the beginning, it's only the current example. She's a great leader. I was always fortunate enough in my life to have really good supervisors, leaders. So yeah, that's about it.
Great. Thank you very much. Tobias, I really enjoyed this discussion, and it's been a really interesting peek behind the curtain from an investment point of view. I think a lot of people maybe sometimes it's difficult to find this information, so it's really good to hear it straight from source. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it as well, and I'm sure the people at home will.
I did very much. Thank you very much for having me, Matthew, and also for the very intriguing questions. It's always good to have those also for yourself to sometimes take a step back. Yeah, enjoyed it very much, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much.